Successful people don't wait for a crisis to evaluate their progress. They understand that daily self-awareness is the seed of long-term transformation. That's why, before they go to bed, they take time, just a few minutes, to honestly review their day. Not in a dramatic way, not with guilt, but with clear eyes and steady hands, because success is not found in grand gestures, but in the quiet, repeated act of reflection. This simple practice of review isn't about dwelling on mistakes. It's about gathering data from your own life. Think of it like reading the scoreboard after the game. You're not emotional about it. You're informed. You're not beating yourself up. You're taking notes. That's the difference between those who improve and those who repeat. The people who improve reflect. The people who repeat avoid. Every night offers an opportunity to pause and ask meaningful questions. What did I do today that moved me forward? Where did I waste time? How did I treat people? What did I say that I wish I hadn't? Where was I strong? Where was I weak? These aren't questions of judgment, they are questions of direction. Success leaves clues, but so does failure. The difference is whether you're willing to observe them. Most people move so fast they never slow down to notice. They're caught in the cycle of doing, reacting, consuming. But those who succeed long-term create margin to observe *. They take 5 to 10 minutes at the end of their day and examine their thoughts, their choices, their behavior, not because they want to feel bad, but because they want to grow. The truth is, your life is always sending you signals. If you keep losing your temper at the same moment each day, that's a signal. If you feel energized after certain work and drained after other tasks, that's a signal. If you always skip the hard conversations, that's a signal. But signals ignored become patterns, and patterns unchallenged become identity. So successful people review their day to catch the small things before they become big things. This act of honest review builds internal trust. Because each night you ask yourself to tell the truth, you learn to trust your own feedback more than flattery or criticism from the outside. And in a world drowning in noise, that's a powerful asset, the ability to be guided by your own clear thinking. It's not always comfortable. Sometimes you'll see things you don't like. Maybe you wasted too much time. Maybe you avoided an important task. Maybe you were short with someone you care about. But even that discomfort is a gift. Because what you notice, you can change, and what you ignore, you repeat. There's power in facing the day, even if the day wasn't perfect. And here's the truth most people miss. Growth doesn't happen at the moment of failure. It happens in the moment after, when you decide whether to face it or run from it. That's why successful people don't let the day end without learning something from it. They don't try to erase it. They try to understand it. This practice of nightly review also keeps you from drifting. You've probably heard people say things like, "I don't know how I got here," or "somehow I just lost my way." That's rarely a sudden fall. It's usually the slow erosion of intention, one compromise here, one overlooked habit there. One day you forget to check in, and then it becomes a week, then a month, then years. But people who review their day stay anchored. They don't drift as easily because they keep recalibrating. They correct course in inches, not in emergencies. The review doesn't have to be formal. You don't need a journal with gold trim and poetic prompts. It can be as simple as sitting on your bed and thinking through the events of the day, or scribbling a few bullet points in a notebook, or speaking them aloud while brushing your teeth. What matters is not the format, but the focus. Some people use a 1-10 scale. How productive was I today? How present was I with people? How disciplined was I with distractions? Others simply write down 3 wins and 3 lessons. You can tailor the method to your personality, but keep the core principle the same. Review the day honestly and without drama. When done consistently, this nightly practice becomes a mirror, not a mirror of vanity, but of vision. You begin to see patterns in your thinking. You start to notice how certain environments affect you, how particular people influence your mood, how your energy rises or falls depending on the hour. You begin to recognize how much control you actually have, and how much you were blaming circumstances for things you could have managed differently. That's a breakthrough, because the more responsibility you take for the day, the more power you hold for tomorrow. Without daily review, life becomes one long blur. Days blend into weeks, weeks into months. You might be busy, but you're not intentional. You might be active, but you're not aligned. You move, but you don't progress. Reflection is what turns motion into momentum. This practice also sharpens your self-respect. Every time you choose to confront your day, you're sending yourself a message. My life matters, my actions matter, my future matters. That's a powerful affirmation, not spoken but demonstrated. It also humbles you in the best way, because when you reflect, you realize how far you still have to go. And that humility is what keeps you learning. It keeps you open. It keeps you curious. Success doesn't make you arrogant when you review your mistakes. It makes you grateful. You begin to see that progress is not about being perfect today. It's about being a little wiser than yesterday. And if you can do that 5 nights a week, 50 weeks a year, over the course of a decade, you'll look back and realize you didn't just build success. You became the kind of person success had no choice but to follow. Successful people don't leave tomorrow to chance. They don't wake up and wonder what the day holds. They don't begin their mornings by reacting to the world's demands, scrolling through messages, or scrambling to figure out what to do first. Instead, they end their evenings by preparing for what's ahead. Because they understand something most people don't. Tomorrow doesn't begin when the sun rises, it begins the night before. The best mornings are built in the quiet decisions made at night. Planning the next day is not about control for control's sake. It's about direction. It's about placing intention before momentum. When you sleep without a plan, you surrender the first few hours of your morning to chaos, decision fatigue, and distractions. But when you sleep with a plan, you wake up with clarity. You're not wasting time debating your priorities. You're not tempted by every new demand. You already know what matters because you decided it while your mind was still clear and your vision was still intact. This doesn't require a complicated system. Successful people don't need 30 sticky notes, 5 productivity apps, and a 10-step framework. What they need and what they practice is a simple routine. Before bed, they write down the top 3 things they must focus on the next day. That's it, not 15 goals, not everything they could do. Just the 3 things they must do. These are the non-negotiables, the tasks that, if completed, would make the day feel meaningful and productive. Why 3? Because it forces focus. Too many goals dilute your attention. Too many options weaken your energy. 3 is just enough to create progress without overwhelming your system. 3 is doable. 3 is clear. And when you commit to those 3 the night before, you're already halfway through your first battle of the next day, knowing what to do. Planning tomorrow at night also gives you perspective. You're not caught up in the rush of the morning. You're not emotionally charged. You're calm, reflective, able to assess what actually matters. You can ask yourself with honesty, what is the highest use of my time tomorrow? What action will move me closer to the life I want? That moment of nighttime calm gives you the mental space to align your actions with your goals, not just your urgencies. When you plan tomorrow at night, you also sleep better. You offload your brain. You no longer carry all your unfinished business into your dreams. The mind likes closure, and when you write things down, when you give tomorrow a name, it allows today to settle. You reduce mental clutter. You release anxiety. The subconscious mind can rest because it knows the conscious mind has already made decisions. Planning is not just a productivity tool, it's a peace tool. The successful also understand that planning isn't just about tasks. It's also about timing. So they don't just list what they'll do, they often decide when they'll do it. Because the truth is, even important tasks don't get done without a time slot. If you don't give it a place on the calendar, life will fill that space for you. So part of their nightly routine includes asking, when will I tackle this? Whether it's 7:00 a.m. deep work or a 2:00 p.m. call, they anchor those actions in time. That small shift from vague intention to scheduled execution separates the wishful thinkers from the doers. And while most people rely on motivation in the morning, successful people rely on preparation from the night before. Motivation is unpredictable. Some mornings you'll have it, some mornings you won't. But if your day is already scripted, you don't need motivation. You need discipline. You just follow the plan. You don't think, you act. You don't ask, should I do this now? You know, you already decided. That pre-decision eliminates hesitation, and hesitation is where most productivity dies. Planning the next day also allows you to keep the bigger picture in mind. Each night, you can look at your goals, weekly, monthly, or even yearly, and ask, is what I'm doing tomorrow in alignment with where I want to be? That question keeps your ladder leaning against the right wall. You avoid climbing fast in the wrong direction. The nightly plan becomes your steering wheel, gently correcting your course every 24 hours. It prevents drift and over time creates momentum. This discipline of planning is also a form of self-respect. It's you telling yourself, my time matters, my goals matter, my life deserves structure. That mindset builds confidence because every time you follow through on your plan, you strengthen the belief that you can trust yourself. And self-trust, more than anything, is what sustains long-term growth. It's not willpower, it's not hype. It's consistency fueled by planning and execution. People who succeed don't confuse being busy with being productive. They don't measure their days by how much they did, but by how much of the right things they did. That level of intention doesn't happen on accident. It's planned the night before. Without that discipline, it's easy to fall into the trap of reacting to emails, social media, and other people's agendas. But when you've already set your own agenda, you become harder to distract. You live proactively, not reactively. Another benefit of nighttime planning is emotional readiness. Let's say you have a difficult conversation coming up tomorrow, or a big presentation, or a deadline that's been hanging over your head. Writing it down the night before gives you space to mentally prepare. You're not ambushed in the morning, you've acknowledged it. You've placed it in your plan. That emotional awareness makes you more grounded, more centered, and ultimately more effective. It's also worth noting that the act of planning itself trains your brain. Neuroscience shows that when you visualize or write down your intentions, your brain begins to prepare itself for the behavior. It builds neural pathways. It anticipates the task. So even while you sleep, your mind is aligning with tomorrow's goals. That's a hidden advantage most people never tap into. Planning isn't just an external exercise. It creates internal momentum, and here's another thing. The more consistently you plan at night, the more creative freedom you actually gain. Some people resist structure because they think it limits spontaneity, but in reality, structure protects creativity. When your main tasks are already organized, your mind is free to explore ideas, take risks, and innovate without the constant stress of what's next. You've cleared the mental runway, so your best thinking can take off. Successful people don't wait for life to tell them what to do. They tell life what they will do, and that conversation doesn't happen in the morning rush. It happens in the quiet of the evening when the world slows down and the distractions fade. They look at the day behind and the day ahead, and they make conscious choices, because they understand that every day is a small step in a much larger journey. And that journey won't move forward unless tomorrow is shaped before it arrives. In the modern world, distraction is the new default. The moment the sun sets and the workday ends, a flood of digital noise rushes in messages, notifications, entertainment, opinions, advertisements. For most people, this is just normal. They carry their phones into the evening like oxygen tanks, unable to separate their thoughts from the screen. But successful people operate differently. They understand that the nighttime is sacred. It is not a time to absorb more noise. It is a time to disconnect so they can reconnect with themselves, with their purpose, and with what truly matters. The ability to unplug isn't about being antisocial or rejecting technology. It's about intentional separation. It's about recognizing that constantly consuming information comes at a cost. The cost is clarity. The cost is peace. The cost is rest. The successful know that clarity, peace, and rest are not luxuries. They are assets. Assets that directly impact decision making, emotional control, creativity, and productivity. When you remain connected to devices and input streams all the way until your head hits the pillow, you never truly arrive at rest. Your body may be lying down, but your mind is still processing. The last thing you see or hear often becomes the first thing you think about when you wake up. And if that last thing was noise, conflict, or meaningless content, your subconscious is starting the next day on shaky ground. Successful people avoid this trap by building a digital boundary in their evenings. That boundary may look different for each person. For some, it's turning off their phone completely an hour before bed. For others, it's switching the device to airplane mode or placing it in a drawer. The method doesn't matter as much as the intention behind it. The intention is to reclaim control over your mental space, to choose what occupies your mind before sleep, to give your thoughts room to breathe without being buried under another endless scroll. This disconnection also opens the door to real reconnection. When you're not constantly consuming, you become more aware of what's happening inside you. You start to hear your own thoughts again. You start to feel your own emotions more clearly. You notice what's unresolved. You become conscious of where your energy went during the day, and whether it went to things that truly mattered. That's the kind of self-awareness that leads to better choices, deeper insights, and more aligned action. Disconnection also improves the quality of your relationships. When you put your devices away at night, you're more present with your family, your partner, your friends. You're able to listen, not just hear. You're able to engage, not just exist in the same room. And in a world starving for real connection, that presence is rare and powerful. Successful people protect it by not allowing digital interference to dominate their final hours. There's a myth that staying connected means staying productive, but productivity doesn't come from constant access. It comes from focused, intentional energy. You don't gain clarity by flooding your brain with content until midnight. You gain clarity by stepping away, reflecting, and allowing your mind to process. The best ideas don't show up in a sea of distraction. They surface in stillness. That's why successful people guard that stillness fiercely. They create space in their evenings for solitude, for silence, for thought. This kind of evening disconnection also improves sleep. When your brain is stimulated by blue light, by rapid fire content, by emotional triggers from social media, it doesn't settle easily. You may fall asleep out of exhaustion, but your sleep will be shallow, your dreams scattered, and your recovery incomplete. The mind needs a runway to land, not a crash pad. Unplugging at night gives it that runway. It signals to your nervous system that the day is done, that it's safe to relax, that it's time to restore. Successful people use that restored state to begin the next day strong. They don't stumble into the morning with a foggy mind and a tired spirit. They wake up clearer, lighter, more focused, and that edge, the edge of a well-rested, undistracted mind, is what allows them to outperform those who are always on, always connected, always distracted. Detaching from screens and digital input also allows for intentional input. Instead of absorbing noise, you can feed your mind something meaningful. Maybe it's reading a chapter of a good book. Maybe it's journaling your thoughts. Maybe it's a short walk in silence, or just sitting in stillness with your own mind. These aren't grand acts, but they're deeply impactful, because they remind you that your life is not just made up of tasks and notifications. It's made up of thoughts, reflections, ideas, intentions, and those need time to surface. Even the act of reviewing your day is easier without a device in your hand. When you're unplugged, you're not comparing your evening to someone else's highlight reel. You're focused on your own reality. You're grounded in what actually happened. You're not distracted by what everyone else is doing. You're present to what you are doing. That inward focus is what allows for growth. It's what keeps you rooted while the world spins in chaos. There's also something to be said about discipline. The discipline to disconnect builds self-mastery. Every time you choose to put the phone down, to walk away from the screen, to resist the urge to check one more message, you are strengthening your will, and self-mastery is the cornerstone of success. If you can't control what you pay attention to, you will always be controlled by what wants your attention. The successful know this. That's why they make evening disconnection a non-negotiable. This habit also guards your energy. Your energy is not infinite. You only have so much to give each day. If you spend your final waking moments giving it to algorithms, advertisements, or arguments, you have nothing left for yourself. But if you unplug, you get that energy back. You can reinvest it in your mind, in your values, in your relationships, in your rest. The evening is a threshold. It is the bridge between what was and what will be. And what you carry across that bridge determines how you show up on the other side. If you carry clutter, you wake up heavy. If you carry intention, you wake up light. Disconnecting from the noise isn't about escaping the world. It's about entering your world, the world of your own thoughts, goals, priorities, and values. The world that often gets drowned out by the volume of the external. Successful people lower that volume each night, not because they're afraid of missing out, but because they're committed to tuning in. Gratitude is not just a feeling, it's a decision. It's a perspective, a lens through which successful people choose to look at life. They don't reserve gratitude only for the good days when everything flows effortlessly. They practice it every night, especially on the hard days when nothing seemed to go right. When plans fell apart, when people disappointed them, when energy ran low and results didn't match effort. They understand that gratitude is not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about acknowledging that even in imperfection, there's still something to appreciate, something to learn, something to grow from. At the end of the day, it's easy to get caught in what didn't happen, what went wrong, or what you wish you could do over. But successful people have trained their minds to find what's still standing, what worked, what small progress was made, even if the pace was slower than expected. They recognize that gratitude doesn't deny the hard, it balances it. It doesn't erase the setbacks, it puts them in context, and that perspective is power. Gratitude also serves as emotional calibration. After a long, demanding day filled with stress, distractions, and decisions, it's tempting to carry that weight into the night. You lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations, analyzing your mistakes, doubting your path. But when you take a moment to give thanks, even silently, you shift your emotional state. You bring the focus back to what you have, not just what you lack. You remind yourself of the resources, the people, the lessons, the resilience, and the quiet victories that still showed up, even when the day fell off track. This isn't a form of denial, it's discipline. The discipline to not let a rough moment define the entire day, the discipline to see beyond the noise, the discipline to separate the event from the essence, because one disappointment doesn't erase all your growth. One bad meeting doesn't undo your work ethic. One missed opportunity doesn't negate your purpose. Successful people express gratitude because they understand that their attitude at night sets the tone for tomorrow's mindset. They also use gratitude to strengthen mental resilience. Life will throw challenges, unexpected obstacles, rejections, delays. People will misunderstand you, criticize you, overlook your efforts. But gratitude builds an inner foundation. It reminds you that progress isn't always visible and that value doesn't always come in the form of results. Sometimes the value is the endurance you built, the lesson you gained, the patience you practiced. Gratitude reframes adversity as preparation. It shifts the narrative from "why is this happening to me?" to "what is this making possible for me?" Gratitude, when practiced consistently, becomes a filter. You start to see life differently. You begin to notice the good more quickly. You become more aware of the small moments that might have once gone unnoticed. The kind gesture, the quiet support, the new idea, the spark of creativity, the breath of clarity. That awareness doesn't just make you more optimistic, it makes you more grounded. It builds emotional strength that can withstand pressure, uncertainty, and the weight of responsibility. It also fosters humility. When you give thanks, especially in silence, you acknowledge that not everything was your doing. You realize that someone gave you time, someone offered support, someone trusted you, someone opened a door. Gratitude reminds you that success is not a solo journey. It's built on relationships, opportunity, timing, and grace. That realization softens your ego and strengthens your character. It keeps you connected to your humanity, which is essential in a world that often rewards image over substance. Gratitude at night is also a form of closure. It allows you to finish the day with dignity. Instead of leaving thoughts scattered and unresolved, you gather them, reflect, and give them meaning. You tie the emotional threads of the day together and choose what to carry forward. That mental closure is essential because unfinished emotions can follow you into sleep and subtly sabotage your rest. But when you end the day with gratitude, your mind can let go. It knows the day has been seen, valued, and completed. This practice doesn't require a long process. It can be as simple as whispering "thank you" while lying in bed, writing down 3 things you're grateful for in a notebook, or mentally reviewing the moments you appreciated. It could be gratitude for people, for your health, for an opportunity, for an insight, or for simply making it through a tough day. The content of the gratitude doesn't need to be extraordinary. What matters is the act itself. That consistent choice to give thanks reshapes your internal dialogue. Over time, it replaces the tendency to dwell on what's missing with the habit of focusing on what's present. Gratitude also strengthens your ability to stay consistent with your goals. On the tough days, when motivation runs low and effort feels invisible, gratitude reminds you why you started. It reconnects you with your purpose. It anchors you to the long-term vision when the short-term feels heavy. That emotional connection is often what keeps successful people moving forward when others give up. They don't continue because it's easy. They continue because they're grateful for the chance to even try, to improve, to build, to become. In expressing gratitude at night, successful people are not just processing the day, they're directing their identity. They're saying, "I am the kind of person who appreciates the process, who finds the gold even in the gravel, who learns from pain, who honors effort even when it doesn't get applause." That identity becomes part of their mindset. And that mindset determines how they approach the next challenge, the next opportunity, the next morning. Gratitude also enhances emotional intelligence. It helps you recognize how others contributed to your day. Maybe a colleague covered for you. Maybe a friend listened when you needed to vent. Maybe a stranger smiled at you in a way that changed your mood. When you reflect on those moments, you not only appreciate them, you also remember to reciprocate. You start to treat others with more care, more patience, more kindness, and that, over time, deepens the quality of your relationships and your leadership. There's also a spiritual element to gratitude. Whether you believe in a higher power, the universe, or simply the natural order of things, gratitude is a form of alignment. It's a way of saying, "I see what's happening in my life. I don't take it for granted. I recognize the rhythm, the grace, the timing, even if I don't fully understand it." That level of awareness keeps you grounded during success and centered during struggle. Gratitude isn't about being passive. It doesn't mean you're content with mediocrity or blind to your flaws. It means you're choosing to find strength in what you have, even as you strive for more. It means you're building from a place of fullness, not scarcity. And when you operate from that fullness, you don't just chase success. You attract it because your mindset becomes magnetic, stable, and focused. Rest is not a luxury. It's not a sign of weakness or a reward reserved for weekends or vacations. Rest is a strategy. The people who succeed at the highest levels don't grind themselves into the ground and call it dedication. They don't wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. They understand that rest, properly valued and properly structured, is what allows them to go further, think sharper, and lead longer. They've realized that a tired mind makes poor decisions, a tired body loses discipline, and a tired spirit cannot carry the weight of vision. So they protect their rest, not just as a personal need, but as a professional advantage. When most people think of rest, they imagine sleeping as an afterthought, something that happens if there's nothing else to do. They scroll until their eyes can't stay open or work until they collapse. They treat sleep like an inconvenience, but successful people treat it like a pillar. It's part of their plan, not an accident. They schedule it, they protect it, they design their evening routines around it. They understand that the quality of their sleep affects the quality of their decisions, and the quality of their decisions shapes the quality of their lives. Sleep isn't just about avoiding fatigue. It's about recovery, consolidation, and regeneration. During sleep, your brain processes information, consolidates learning, repairs damage, and restores balance. Skipping sleep doesn't just leave you tired. It leaves you fragmented. The successful know that if they want to think clearly tomorrow, they have to give their brain the rest it needs tonight. They understand that mental clarity is not just built through work, but maintained through recovery. The discipline of going to bed on time is not always easy, especially in a world filled with late night distractions, digital temptations, and the illusion that we can catch up later. But successful people build a boundary. They don't treat the night as free time for mindless consumption. They treat it as a runway for the next day. They begin their descent from the noise, the activity, the stimulation. They let the evening wind down gradually. Not rushed, not chaotic, calm, clear, structured. That discipline makes all the difference. Rest also impacts emotional control. When you're underrested, everything becomes heavier. Small problems feel like major crises. You lose patience faster, react more emotionally, and misinterpret signals. You speak when you should stay quiet, and stay quiet when you should speak. But when you're well rested, you're less reactive and more reflective. You're able to pause, evaluate, and respond with thought instead of impulse. That difference in emotional response can alter the course of an entire day, a conversation, a decision, or a relationship. The successful aren't just physically sharper, they're emotionally steadier, and rest is a key reason why. Another thing successful people understand is that rest is not the opposite of ambition. It's the fuel for it. It doesn't slow you down, it prepares you to speed up. Resting with intention allows you to push harder when it counts. It allows you to focus deeply, move efficiently, and endure longer periods of effort. Without proper rest, your work becomes sloppy, your motivation wears thin, and your passion begins to feel like pressure. But with rest, your energy returns, your perspective expands, and your drive is renewed. Rest isn't only about sleep. It's about disengaging from constant input. It's about stepping back from performance mode and allowing your nervous system to reset. It can be found in silence, in stillness, in solitude, in taking a walk without headphones, in spending time without screens, in simply breathing and being. These moments of intentional rest sharpen awareness, improve creativity, and create space for insight. Many breakthroughs don't happen during hustle. They happen during quiet, and the successful make room for that quiet. They also know that the timing of rest matters. Going to bed at 2 in the morning and waking at 10 doesn't carry the same benefits as sleeping earlier in the night. The body follows a rhythm, and when you respect that rhythm, you gain more from your rest. The hours before midnight have a different impact on recovery than the hours after, so they aim to get to sleep at a consistent time. Not because they're rigid, but because they're aligned with how the body and mind regenerate. That consistency builds a strong foundation for energy, focus, and resilience. Resting well also requires preparing well. Successful people don't just fall into bed hoping for good sleep. They create an environment that promotes it. They dim the lights, they lower the temperature, they eliminate noise, they turn off notifications. They avoid heavy meals and stimulants. These aren't random habits, they're systems that signal the brain it's time to shift gears. That shift allows them to transition from performance mode to recovery mode efficiently and naturally. They don't fight sleep, they invite it. This intentional approach to rest affects how they handle adversity. When challenges hit the well-rested mind doesn't panic, it pivots. It doesn't spiral, it steadies. The rested individual can see more clearly, respond more creatively, and lead with more confidence. Fatigue narrows your perspective. It convinces you that temporary frustration is permanent failure. But rest expands your view. It reminds you that not everything needs to be solved tonight, and not every problem is as urgent as it seems. Over time, the accumulation of rest becomes part of their performance edge. While others burn out from constant motion, they maintain a sustainable rhythm. They're not sprinting through life. They're pacing with precision. They're not chasing productivity. They're cultivating it. That difference in rhythm leads to consistency, and consistency leads to results. It's not about how many hours you grind, it's about how much focused energy you bring when it counts, and focused energy is a product of rest. Rest also reinforces identity. Every night you choose to protect your sleep, you affirm that you are someone who values long-term growth over short-term distraction. You're not just living for the moment, you're investing in your potential. That kind of self-respect shapes how you carry yourself, how you set boundaries, and how you pursue your goals. It strengthens your discipline, it improves your decision making. It reinforces the habits that support your best self. The people who master rest don't do it because they're tired. They do it because they're serious. They know that mental toughness isn't built by running on empty. It's built by renewing what matters, and rest is one of those renewals. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the mature recognition that if you want to play the long game, if you want to win over decades instead of just weeks, you need to manage your energy as carefully as your time. Rest is also a message. It tells your mind and body that you are safe, that the work is enough for now, that you can let go. That message creates trust, and when your system trusts you, it performs better for you. You don't need to run yourself into the ground to prove your ambition. You need to respect your limits to protect your vision. You need to rest strategically, not occasionally, with intention, not guilt, with structure, not neglect. Rest becomes part of your plan, not what's left after your plan has burned you out. Consistency beats complexity. That's a truth successful people hold close when it comes to their nighttime routines. They don't chase perfection. They don't build elaborate rituals that require endless resources, equipment, or time. What they do is keep their night routine simple, realistic, and repeatable. It's not about creating an ideal evening once in a while. It's about creating a rhythm they can stick to every single night, regardless of how busy or chaotic the day has been. The secret is in the repetition. Simplicity is what makes that repetition possible. Too often, people assume that success requires grand routines. They look at what others are doing and think they need to copy 10 different habits to be effective. But successful people don't complicate the process. They know that the most powerful routine is the one you can do on your worst days, not just your best days. That's why they strip it down to the essentials. Their routine might be 30 minutes. It might be less, but it includes what truly matters, what helps them reflect, reset, and recharge for tomorrow. What makes a routine repeatable is that it's sustainable. That means it fits their lifestyle, their personality, and their goals. It doesn't require them to reinvent the wheel every night. It doesn't rely on motivation or inspiration. It's not driven by emotion. It's anchored in discipline. They follow the same steps in the same order, creating a mental trigger that tells their body and mind it's time to wind down. That consistency is what makes the routine effective. Over time, it becomes automatic, and that automation conserves willpower and decision-making energy. They also understand that a routine is not a rulebook, it's a framework. A good nighttime routine has structure but allows flexibility. Life changes, some days are longer, some nights are interrupted, but a simple and repeatable routine can be adjusted without falling apart. It's not so rigid that missing one step means failure. It's not so fragile that it breaks under pressure. The successful don't aim for perfect execution. They aim for continuity. Even when they're tired, traveling, or out of sync, they can still do some version of their routine that keeps the habit alive and the identity strong. Part of what makes their night routine effective is clarity. They know exactly what they are trying to achieve with it. It's not just about passing time until they fall asleep. It's about transitioning with intention. They use their routine to mark the end of the workday and the beginning of rest. That boundary is crucial. Without it, the mind carries the stress and urgency of the day straight into the night. But with a simple sequence of actions, perhaps shutting down the computer, dimming the lights, brushing their teeth, writing down a few reflections, they create a clear signal that the day is over. That signal helps the mind shift gears and settle. Another reason their routine works is that it avoids unnecessary stimulation. The evening isn't filled with mental clutter, loud content, or chaotic energy. They've learned that what you consume before bed doesn't just affect your sleep. It affects your thoughts, your mood, and your mindset the next morning. So they keep things calm and intentional. Maybe it's reading a few pages from a book, or listening to something relaxing, or journaling a few thoughts. These small practices create mental stillness, and mental stillness at night leads to mental clarity at sunrise. The repeatable nature of their routine also brings a sense of control. No matter how unpredictable the day was, they can come home to something familiar. That familiarity reduces anxiety and builds stability. It gives them something steady to return to, and when life is moving fast, that sense of stability is incredibly grounding. It helps them stay balanced. It helps them feel like they are still in the driver's seat, even when the day didn't go according to plan. Their night routine is also built around protecting their energy. They don't waste their final waking hours on things that drain them. They conserve what's left of their attention and emotion. They choose activities that restore, not exhaust. Even 10 minutes of solitude, reflection, or stillness can do more for their energy than an hour of entertainment. They recognize that the energy they protect tonight becomes the energy they invest tomorrow. And that investment compounds over time into stronger focus, better execution, and greater endurance. Simplicity in their night routine also helps build trust with themselves. Every time they follow through on it, even in a small way, they send a message: I keep my word. I honor my process. That internal message matters. It strengthens their self-image. It reinforces their identity as someone who follows through. That identity carries into the next morning, where they're more likely to keep making strong decisions. The night routine is not just a set of actions. It's a silent commitment, a private promise to stay aligned even when no one is watching. Successful people don't wait for the perfect time to build a routine. They build it in the middle of real life. That's why it's realistic. It fits into their world, not someone else's. It's designed around what they know they can do, not what they hope to someday manage. That realism is what keeps the habit alive. There's no fantasy, no pressure, no performance. Just a steady pattern that they can trust, repeat, and improve over time. They also view their routine as a tool, not a task. It's not something they have to check off. It's something that serves them. It's how they prepare the mind for sleep, and how they prepare the self for another day of focus and responsibility. They don't do it to impress anyone. They do it because it works, because it makes the next day smoother, clearer, and more intentional. Even when they're tired, even when they've had a rough day, they return to that routine. Maybe not the full version, maybe just a piece, but the effort is what counts. That effort protects the pattern, and over weeks, months, and years, that pattern builds a mindset. A mindset that doesn't rely on chaos, emotion, or luck, but on discipline, clarity, and intention. That's what separates successful people from the rest. Not just what they do, but what they do consistently. A simple and repeatable night routine is the foundation of a controlled morning. It's how they go to bed clear and wake up ready. It's how they stay aligned with their goals even when life is unpredictable. They don't reinvent the wheel, they don't complicate the process, they just keep showing up quietly, steadily, night after night. The power of their routine is not in its complexity, it's in its consistency.